All right, so get this. We're diving into like this book called The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing.
Okay.
And
It sounds intense.
it's intense. It really
Right.
is. This is by Ries and Jack Trout.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically say they've cracked the code of the marketplace.
Okay.
These like invisible forces
Yeah.
that shape what we buy, whether we realize it or not.
Right.
Kind of a big claim, right?
Yeah, it is a big claim. But you know what grabbed me right from the start
What's that?
is this idea that marketing, it's not about how objectively good your product is.
Okay.
It's about perception.
Okay.
It's the reality that customers build in their minds. And
Mm.
get this, that perception
Yeah.
often ignores logic or even firsthand experience.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's all about how they feel.
It's all about perception.
Wow.
How it's positioned in their mind.
Which brings us to their first law.
Right.
That like threw me for a loop.
Okay.
The law of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so being first in a customer's mind
Right.
trumps being better.
It's true.
And they use this example of Charles Lindbergh
Okay.
versus Bert Hinkler.
Right.
Have you ever heard of Hinkler?
Exactly. Most people haven't.
All right. Right.
And so, he actually made a faster, more efficient transatlantic flight than Lindbergh.
Wow.
But Lindbergh was first,
He was first.
and that name is the one etched in history.
Wow. It's like that mental real estate
Yes.
is up for grabs.
Yes.
And once someone builds on it, it's theirs.
Exactly.
Wow. But what about brands that were that first,
Right.
but now they're gone?
Right.
Like the book mentions Dumont, the first TV brand. Who
Oh.
remembers them?
And that's where the law of the category swoops in.
Okay.
It's not enough to be first in a vague sense.
Right.
You've got to create and own a category in the consumer's mind.
Wow.
So instead of being a small fish in a huge ocean,
Right.
become the big fish in a smaller, well-defined pond.
I like that a lot. So it's not just about selling a thing.
Right.
It's about defining a need.
Yes.
The customer didn't even know they had.
Exactly.
And once that connection is made,
Yes.
good luck changing a part right.
Good luck. That's the law of the mind at work.
That's really interesting. So those first impressions are sticky,
Very sticky.
like Xerox.
Yes.
Total rock stars in the copier world.
Totally.
But they completely struck out trying to get into computers.
They did.
Everyone already pictured them as like the copier company.
The copier company, yeah.
And it's almost like their efforts were just like,
It's like trying to rewrite something carved in stone.
exactly, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
So this is all sounding kind of theoretical.
Right.
But the book is full of real-world examples.
Yes.
And this one about New Coke really made me think.
Okay.
So even though blind taste tests
Yeah.
favored New Coke over the original and even Pepsi,
Right.
it tanked.
It did.
How does that happen?
Well, it's proof that perception beats reality
Mm.
in the marketplace.
Wow.
People had this emotional connection, this fixed idea of what real Coke should taste like.
It's true.
And the new formula just didn't compute.
Interesting.
That's the law of perception.
What?
It's a battle won or lost in the mind, not in a lab.
It's so true. So this is where things get really interesting, right?
Oh,
Ries and Trout say that like most companies are asking the wrong questions.
what do you mean?
Forget, is our product better?
Okay.
The real question is, first, what?
Yes.
What category can we dominate?
Yes, and that's where laser focus comes in,
Okay.
the law of focus, and it's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
To grow, you often need to shrink your scope,
Okay.
make sacrifices.
Right.
Like take Federal Express.
Okay.
They could have been another faceless air freight company.
Right. Exactly.
But they went all in on overnight delivery.
Mm.
Boom. They own in that word in the customer's mind.
It's true.
They dominated that category.
Yeah, they did.
So much so that they actually fell victim to their own law later on.
What do you mean?
They tried to go global,
Okay.
becoming everything to everyone.
And
And it diluted that overnight stronghold.
they forgot their own advice.
They did.
Yeah.
And it cost them.
Ouch.
It's like trying to be a jack of all trades.
Right.
You end up mastering none.
Right.
They lost their unique edge.
Yeah.
The authors call this the law of exclusivity.
Okay.
Two companies can't own the same word in the prospect's mind.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Like Volvo safety.
Oh, yeah.
No matter how hard other car companies try, that word goes straight to Volvo.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's almost like this like verbal battle
It is. Yeah.
of like finding that one word,
Yes.
that one
Yes.
like mental hook
Yes.
and claiming it.
Owning it.
Yes. And if you can't be first,
Right.
you better be different.
Yes. You better be different. That's where the law of the opposite comes into play.
Ooh, I like that.
Think Coke versus Pepsi.
Okay.
Coke owned, classic, established, maybe even a little old.
Yeah.
Pepsi took that and ran with it,
Okay.
becoming the drink for the younger rebellious, the Pepsi generation.
Oh, that's good. So we've covered what happens if you're first.
Right,
But what if you're not?
right,
What if you're coming into a crowded market?
right.
That's got to be like most of us, right?
And that's where the law of the ladder comes in.
Okay.
It's all about understanding the hierarchy that already exists in the customer's mind.
Okay.
Every product category has its ladder, and each brand occupies a rung.
So, like, are you the top dog or the underdog or
Just-
somewhere in between?
Why you be Wendy's?
Yeah. And your strategy depends on where you stand.
Exactly. It's
Huh.
about playing the hand you're dealt.
Okay.
Take Avis, for example.
Okay.
They spent years trying to convince people they were the best rental car company. But Hertz was already number one.
Right.
Nobody believed them.
It's true. It's like shouting into the void.
Exactly.
People have already made up their minds.
But then Avis had this brilliant pivot.
What did they do?
They embraced their number 2 spot with the We Try Harder campaign.
Oh, yeah.
It was a stroke of genius.
They did.
They acknowledged the existing perception and used it to their advantage.
They found their lane and they owned it. I love that. It's like they said, hey, we see you, Hertz.
Right.
But we're coming for you.
And it worked. They connected with everyone who, for whatever reason, didn't want to go with the leader.
So it's like that old saying, if you're not first, you're last, is totally wrong in marketing.
Totally wrong.
Sometimes being number 2 or even acknowledging a weakness can actually make you stronger.
Absolutely. Scope is another great example.
Okay.
They didn't shy away from the fact that Listerine the mouthwash king tasted well. Kind of awful.
Right.
Scope owned the good tasting attribute
Yeah.
and won over a whole new segment of customers.
By celebrating what they weren't, rather than trying to be what they weren't.
Exactly.
That's brilliant. So it seems like most brands are always striving to be bigger, but Ries and Trout,
Yeah.
they throw us a curveball with this law of duality.
Yeah.
They claim that eventually every market boils down to a 2-horse race.
It's true.
Really?
It becomes a battle for dominance.
Oh, right.
Coke and Pepsi,
Oh.
McDonald's and Burger King,
Okay.
Nike and Adidas,
Got it.
third place and beyond. They're just fighting to survive.
So they're saying that it's better to be...
They're saying it's often better to be a big fish in a small pond than the other way around.
Interesting. Like 7-Up positioning themselves as the Uncola, like a
Okay.
refreshing alternative to the cola giants,
Exactly.
rather than trying to be like the top lemon lime soda.
Exactly. It's about recognizing where the real opportunity lies,
Okay, I see.
which leads us to another idea that goes against the grain,
What's that?
the law of division.
Okay.
As markets mature, they tend to break down into smaller, more specialized segments.
Okay, but we see all these companies merging.
Right.
And like trying to be everything to everyone.
It's true.
Isn't that like the opposite of what this law is saying?
It is. And the authors use Volkswagen as a cautionary tale.
What happened?
They were killing it with the small car image, right? But then they tried to stretch that across multiple car types.
So they diluted their brand?
They diluted the brand, trying to be all things to all people.
And what happened?
And they lost ground
To...
to Toyota,
Oh, yeah.
Honda,
Okay.
who focused on specific segments.
It's like they forgot that consumers have very particular needs and wants.
They did.
Trying to please everyone often means pleasing no one.
That's right.
It's about carving out your niche, that one special place you can own in the customer's mind.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that brings us to the law of line extension.
Okay.
One of the most dangerous, they say.
What is that?
It's that tempting trap of slapping a successful brand name on everything.
Oh, yeah. It's like the siren song of marketing.
It is.
It's like this worked over there, so it'll work over here too.
Yeah.
But they're saying it's usually a disaster waiting to happen.
a recipe for disaster.
Really?
They compare it to an addiction,
Oh, no.
giving you short-term gains but long-term pain.
Okay.
Think Miller High Life.
Okay.
They were on a roll,
Mm-hmm.
but then came Miller Lite,
Okay.
then Miller Genuine Draft.
Yeah.
Each extension chipped away
Yeah.
at the core brand strength.
It's like they cannibalize themselves from the inside out.
Exactly.
Didn't they also use Donald Trump as an example of this?
They did.
What did they say?
They argued that Trump's early real estate success
Mm-hmm.
was undone because he put his name on
Oh, yeah.
airline stakes.
Right. Yeah.
A university.
Yeah.
You name it, there was a Trump version.
And it diluted his brand.
Diluted the brand.
Yeah.
and they argue contributed to its financial troubles.
Wow. That's kind of a wild thought.
It is. It shows even someone as seemingly invincible as Trump can fall victim to this law.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that focus is key.
Wow.
To be strong, you often need to be narrow.
Okay.
To stand out, you need to make sacrifices.
And that takes us right to their next law, the law of sacrifice.
Yes.
Which again feels like the opposite of what most people think.
How so?
To get ahead, you have to grab every opportunity.
Right.
But they're saying it's about what you're willing to give up.
You got it. To
Yeah.
get something, you have to give something up.
Mm.
They highlight 3 key areas of sacrifice: your product line,
Okay.
your target market,
Okay.
and constant change.
So it's about saying no to some things.
Yes.
So you can say a really powerful yes
Exactly.
to the things that matter.
Yes.
Like Federal Express ditching everything but overnight delivery,
Exactly.
or Pepsi focusing on youth to take on Coke.
Exactly. Or think about White Castle.
Okay.
They basically had the same menu and look for decades.
And people love them for it.
Right.
It's iconic.
It's iconic. They're not trying to be everything to everyone.
right.
Just the perfect burger for their specific niche.
But the business world is constantly changing. How do you even plan for the future when
Right.
you're supposed to be so laser focused on the present?
That's where the laws of perspective and unpredictability come in.
Okay.
They remind us that chasing quick wins can backfire down the line.
So short-term thinking leads to long-term problems.
Got it. Think of sales and discounts like sugar.
Yeah.
They give you a temporary high, but ultimately lead to a nasty crash.
Ouch.
It's about understanding that marketing efforts play out over the long haul.
So no get-rich-quick schemes in marketing.
Not if you want lasting success.
Okay.
And because the future is hazy at best,
Right.
the authors advise against getting bogged down in elaborate long-term plans.
So what do we do instead?
Have a clear direction, be ready to adapt and move quickly when the market changes.
So more like a compass than a detailed map.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know where you're headed, but you're ready to adjust your course along the way.
I like that.
It's about noticing those subtle shifts in the marketplace,
Okay.
rather than getting swept up in every shiny new trend.
Right, because those come and go.
Which brings us to, you guessed it, the law of hype.
Ooh.
Okay?
Don't believe everything you read in the news.
Wait, are you saying I shouldn't trust those 10 marketing hacks you need to try now articles?
Probably not.
Really?
The authors argue that the situation on the ground is often the opposite of what's being reported.
Really?
Remember New Coke?
Oh, yeah?
All hype, no substance?
It's giving the emperor's new clothes.
Right.
But for marketing.
Exactly.
Just because everyone's saying it's amazing doesn't mean it actually is.
Exactly.
So how do we tell the difference between
That's a great question.
yeah,
And it ties directly into our next batch of laws.
how do we tell the difference between a flash-in-the-pan fad and a real lasting trend?
Well, the authors, they compare fads to waves.
Okay.
They make a big splash,
Yeah.
get everyone excited,
Yeah.
and disappear just as quickly.
Trends, on the other hand, are more like the tide.
Okay.
Slow and steady,
Okay.
and ultimately much more powerful.
Interesting.
That's the law of acceleration in action.
So how do you ride the tide and not get wiped out by the wave?
Right.
What are some of the signs?
Think about the Cabbage Patch Kids craze.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone had to have one.
They did.
Then poof,
Gone.
they were gone.
It's true.
Compare that with Barbie.
Okay.
She's been around for decades.
That's true. She's an icon.
That staying power comes from tapping into something deeper,
Okay.
something that resonates with people long term.
Okay. That makes sense. It's not just about being new and exciting. It's
Yeah.
about building something with substance.
Yes.
Speaking of substance,
Okay.
Ries and Trout don't shy away from talking about failure. In fact, they have a whole law dedicated to it,
What's that?
the law of failure.
The law of failure.
And they flip the script on how we usually view failure.
How so?
They argue that it's inevitable in marketing
Okay.
and that the key is to recognize it early and own up to it, and most importantly, learn from it.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
They even contrast how different cultures approach failure.
Really?
They say Americans tend to blame individuals,
Okay.
while the Japanese see it as a learning opportunity for the whole team.
Oh, wow. That's a very different approach.
It is.
Interesting.
They also point to Walmart's ready, fire, aim approach.
Oh, wow.
It's about encouraging experimentation and accepting that not every idea will be a home run.
That's a good way to look at it.
It's about being willing to take risks
Yeah,
and not being afraid to make mistakes.
I like it.
Sounds a little scary,
Yeah.
but also kind of freeing.
It is.
Yeah, I could see that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it leads to their next law,
Okay.
the law of success.
The law of success.
And you might think,
Yeah.
Wait, haven't we already covered that?
Right. Exactly.
But this law is a bit of a paradox.
How so?
It's about the dangers of success.
The dangers of success.
So what, becoming successful is a bad thing?
Not exactly. No.
I'm confused.
It's about recognizing that success
Yeah.
often leads to arrogance.
Okay.
And arrogance, well, that's a recipe for disaster.
It's like they say pride comes before the fall.
Exactly.
Right.
They bring up examples like Donald Trump
Okay.
and Robert Maxwell,
Mm-hmm.
both incredibly successful early on,
Right.
but blinded by their own success.
They stopped listening to the market,
Oh, no.
stopped adapting,
Oh,
and ultimately,
yeah.
it cost them everything.
It's a good reminder that no one is invincible,
That's right.
no matter how successful they become.
It's true.
But how do you stay grounded?
Right.
How do you stay in touch with reality when things are going well?
They offer some practical advice.
Okay, what's that?
Get out of the boardroom.
Okay.
Go incognito.
Okay.
See what's really happening in the marketplace.
So get out there.
Limit those internal meetings and fancy dinners.
Okay.
And foster a culture that embraces experimentation
Yeah.
and isn't afraid to admit mistakes.
It's about staying humble,
Yes.
staying curious,
Yes.
and never assuming you have all the answers.
Right. And that brings us to a really fascinating idea, something they call the law of singularity.
The law of singularity. Okay, lay it on me. What is that?
It's the idea that in marketing, you only get to own one thing,
One.
one word, one concept, one powerful association in the customer's mind.
Okay.
You have to figure out what that one thing is
Okay.
and then hammer it home relentlessly.
So it's about finding your unique superpower
Yes,
and making sure everyone knows about it.
exactly.
No trying to be all things to all people.
Precisely. It's about that laser focus we were talking about earlier.
Right.
They use the example of FedEx
Okay.
and overnight delivery.
Right.
That was their singularity.
And it's not always something positive, right?
Right.
Like Scope leaned into being the good-tasting mouthwash, which implied that Listerine, the market leader, wasn't.
Exactly. Sometimes your singularity is about what you're not.
Wow. I like that a lot.
But here's the kicker.
What's that?
They say the more successful you become,
Mm-hmm.
the harder it is to stay true to that one thing.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
When you're on top,
Yeah,
you have all these opportunities coming your way.
it's true.
Everyone wants a piece of you,
Right.
and it's easy to get distracted.
Yeah, you want to be able to say yes to everything.
Exactly. But that's often the path to mediocrity.
Right.
It's like that old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
It's true.
The most successful companies
Yeah.
are often the ones that have the discipline to stay focused on
Oh.
their core strength,
Okay.
even when it's tempting to chase the next big thing.
That's tough though, right? Because what about trends?
That's a great point.
Don't you have to adapt to stay relevant?
You do.
So how do you balance staying true to your core while still evolving with the times?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
And that's what their next law is all about.
Okay, what is it?
The law of candor.
The law of candor.
Okay. It's about being honest
With.
yourself,
Yeah.
with your customers,
Okay.
and even admitting when things aren't working.
So it's not about pretending to be something you're not
Right.
or chasing after every fleeting trend.
Exactly.
It's about being authentic and transparent.
Yes. It's about having the confidence to say, hey, this is who we are, this is what we stand for.
And if the market doesn't want it.
Then you adapt.
Okay.
But you adapt from a position of strength, from a deep understanding of your core values
Mm-hmm.
and your unique place in the market.
So it's not about being stubborn or inflexible.
Right.
It's about knowing what makes you special
Yes.
and using that as a foundation
It's
for all your decisions.
It's about being able to say no
Too?
to the things that don't fit your brand,
Okay.
even when they seem tempting.
Because.
Because in the long run,
Yeah.
that's what's going to make you successful.
It's about sticking to your guns.
It is. It's about having the courage to be different,
Too.
to zig when everyone else is zagging.
I like it.
And sometimes that means being willing to, well,
To be a little weird.
wait, what? Weird.
Yeah.
You're saying it's a good thing to be weird in marketing. Absolutely. But we'll delve into the fascinating world of weird marketing and the law that governs it right after we talk about, you know what, never mind. We're just going to keep going.
Okay, so before we digressed a little bit, you were saying that being a little weird in marketing can be a good thing.
Right. It all ties back to the law of unpredictability.
Okay, the law of unpredictability.
Yeah. They basically say that you can't predict the future of the market
Right.
with 100% certainty.
Of course not. Things change.
Exactly. Trends change, tastes evolve.
Right.
And what works today might totally flop tomorrow.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does that tie back into being weird?
Because sometimes the best way to stand out
Yeah.
in a crowded market is to do something unexpected,
Okay.
something that defies conventions.
Interesting.
It's about embracing the unexpected and being willing to take risks.
So not following the formula.
Exactly.
Not copying what everyone else is doing.
Right. Think about brands like Old Spice
Okay.
or Geico.
Okay.
They do things that are completely unexpected.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Talking about horses on a beach or a gecko with a British accent.
Okay. Yeah, those are out there.
But it works
Why? Why does that work?
because it's memorable.
Okay.
It's different
Right.
and it gets people talking.
I see what you mean. It's like that saying, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference.
Exactly.
You'd rather have people talking about your brand, even if they think it's a little out there,
Yes.
than not talking about it at all.
Exactly. And that brings us to their next law, the law of resources.
Okay.
And it's a big one.
What is the law of resources?
It's the idea that even the most brilliant marketing plan
Yeah.
is useless if you don't have the resources to execute it.
So money talks. I mean, I kind of knew that already.
Well, it's not just about money.
What else is it about?
It's about having the right people,
Okay.
the right tools,
Mm.
and the right mindset to bring your vision to life.
So it's about more than just having a big budget.
Much more. The authors actually say that it's better to have a great idea
Yeah.
and then find the money
Okay.
than to start with the money and try to force an idea.
So you're saying that the idea is more important than the money?
In a way, yes.
Interesting.
They even talk about entrepreneurs finding money in unconventional ways,
Like what? How unconventional are we talking?
marrying into it,
Okay.
divorcing into it,
Wow.
even finding it at home.
Wow. Okay, so it's about being resourceful,
Exactly.
not just rich.
Exactly. It's about being scrappy
Okay.
and creative
Mhm.
and not being afraid to hustle to get what you need.
I like that. So
I
you
know.
got to have that drive.
You do.
Yeah.
But it's also about being smart with your resources.
Okay, how so?
For big companies,
Yeah.
that means investing in your core brands,
Oh,
not spreading yourself too thin with countless line extensions.
right, because we already learned that line extension can be a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. It's about focusing on what matters.
What makes you unique?
Yes. And then putting all your energy behind it.
Okay, I think I'm getting it. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From the importance being first to the power of being weird.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. It feels like all of these laws kind of boil down to a few key principles: clarity, focus, and authenticity.
I think that's a great summary. It's about having a deep understanding of your brand, your market, and what makes you truly different.
Yes. And having the courage to stay true to that vision, even when it's tempting to stray.
Exactly. It's about remembering that marketing is a marathon, not a sprint,
Right.
and that success comes from building something lasting and meaningful.
Not chasing after every shiny new object.
Exactly. And it's about never underestimating the power of the human mind.
Okay.
At the end of the day, marketing is about connecting with people
Okay.
on an emotional level,
Mm-hmm.
telling stories that resonate,
Right.
and creating experiences that stick with them long after they've interacted with your brand.
Wow. Well, this has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
I feel like I need to go back and reread this book with all of these new insights in mind.
I think that's a great idea. And maybe, just maybe, it will spark some new ideas for your own marketing endeavors.
It definitely has for me. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go figure out how to make my brand a little weirder.
That's the spirit.